again. Another episode of Post Fades and Cheesesteaks, episode 38. Don't have to check this time because I actually got it on the mind, so we're good to go.
About time you came prepared.
38 episodes in, and I finally remember. But yeah, so I mean, right off the bat, we're going to get into obviously the championship, conference championship games, and then small preview of the Super Bowl. We'll save our full preview for another episode, and then got to get to the Eagles coaching, of course. But yeah, let's start off with I guess the last game that finished. We'll start with Chiefs Bills. For me, watching that was it was like I thought the Bills. It's not to say the Bills didn't play great, or they didn't play great, but they played fine. But Josh Allen, I felt like was forcing a lot. Didn't play his best game, but on the flip side, like I don't know if the Chiefs like made any mistakes. Did they even punt?
Oh,
Like
no,
I feel like they played an almost flawless game. Like Hill was like nobody could catch Hill. Like, Travis Kelce was unstoppable, and Mahomes was just throwing. He was doing underhand, sideways, throwing behind his back. Like he was doing whatever he wanted.
I honestly I don't think that watching that game. I don't think it was 38-24 close. Like I don't think at any. I mean, even with the muff punt,
3-up.
Yeah, the Chiefs looked so much better than the Bills the entire game. And what you were saying to the Chiefs punted once their first drive of the game. That was it. I mean, Mahomes was Mahomes. The guy's just incredible. 29-38, 325 to go along with 3 touchdowns. He only got sacked once.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just he's so good, and their playmakers are so amazing. Like, that Hill run was incredible. Hardman had a big play to make up for his punt mistake. It's just I was kind of surprised by the fact that it wasn't a little closer, because I really don't think at any point I ever thought the Bills had a realistic chance of winning that game.
I thought in the first quarter, after they stopped the Bills, like you said, on that first drive, or stopped the Chiefs on the first drive, and then got the muff punt, I was like, oh, we got some momentum going, because I think it was 9-0 at that point.
Yeah, they just look so good. The Chiefs have looked like the best team all year, and they just still look like they're just head and shoulders better than everyone else.
Yeah, it was. It seemed like the Bills never were able to get anything going, and I think that's a credit to the Chiefs defense, because what's scary is their offense is arguably just as good as it was last year, but their defense is like a lot better in my eyes than it was last year.
Their defense, credit. One of the huge things that I took back from that defense was, so Josh Allen was sacked 4 times, and he lost 53 yards on those sacks.
2 of those where he was just running. I was like, what? I was like, that's
what I mean.
Like, where are you going?
Well, if you think, they even had the one where they reviewed it to see if he got the ball out of his hands when he was going out of bounds.
Yeah,
dude, this guy, I don't understand it. I was like watching Carson Wentz. I was like, man, get the ball out of your hand. Like, you were just taking 15-yard losses every time.
Yeah, I think that's what the problem was. Is like he was trying. I think he felt like he was playing poorly, so he was trying to make a big play and make up for it. And some of those passes, like you said, like he must have been holding the ball for like 10 seconds. Like,
I know.
Exaggeration. Like,
well, my other hat tip to this, and this goes back to what we were saying with the Chiefs, is that the secondary played well. I mean, the Bills have weapons. They weren't getting open. Like, there was a reason he was running 15 yards back, but there was nothing there. The big issue for offense, and this is something they have to address in the offseason, because again, it is so glaring, and we've touched on it. They can't run the ball. They just can't do it. Josh Allen led his team in rushing carries. He had rushing carries and yards. He had 7 carries and 88 yards. The next guy, Devin Singletary, had 6 carries for 17 yards, and then Yeldon had 3 for 15. Like, they're just inept. And I don't, like, do you need another running back? Do you need a new, like, offensive run game coordinator? Or do you need a new offensive line? Like, I don't know what it is. It's just I've never seen a team that be, like, so good, like, such a successful team be so inept at one critical area of the game.
I mean, like, I know Singletary's like in his second or third year, and they just drafted Zach Moss. But hey, if Najee Harris is there for them in the first round,
they need to figure something out. That has to be the number one priority on that team. Like, looking at them all season, you still have Allen. Your passing game's fine. I don't think there's any issues there. Your defense is fine. You know, at times they didn't play great, but they played well at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. That is something they have to figure something. They have to figure that out, or they're not going anywhere. Like, they can't be inept at running the ball like this. Like, it's just,
no. You need to be able to run. You can't, like, when the game's on the line, you have to be able to run the ball. But
Well, because one thing I think the Chiefs just put everything in cover. Like they had 100 guys back there in coverage because they weren't even worried about the run. They had
yeah,
no doubt that they were not running the ball successful. And
I will say I would give I forget what I put him at in our safety list, but I think another year in this Chiefs system, Matthew is playing so well. So
oh, he is the catalyst of that defense.
oh, for sure.
Him and I think he's the most important person on that defense. Chris Jones has his spot as well, but
Yeah.
it all starts there. Like the coverage was great. They Diggs went for 6 or 7. That's not a Stephon Diggs game, and you think they were trailing for most of the game, so they had to just hoist it up.
Yeah, I was
Um,
waiting for Diggs to break out, and he just was being. I don't know if they were hiding their coverages and cleaning him up at every level so that he couldn't find an opening. But yeah, he didn't do
listen,
much.
the secondary played well, and I would be excited for that going forward because the Bills have weapons, but the Buccaneers have more weapons. They've got a lot of weapons, and you're
Yeah,
going to need to cover them.
I think the Bills are set up well though. For I mean, yeah, like you said, the running game is something that they need to work on. But
That's their
they,
biggest issue. Outside of that, I think they're a really good team from top to bottom. That is just they have to figure that out because that is their Achilles heel, and it's just been an issue all year. And you're just waiting until Josh Allen gets hurt. He's constantly leading your team in rushing. He's going to get hurt eventually if you keep this style of offense going.
yeah, the last thought I had on that game was I was a little disappointed in the Chiefs. Some of the Chiefs players like not. I know it's a game and like the Bills were being very scrappy too, but they were some of the players weren't showing a lot of class, like doing like the crybaby stuff and starting fights. I'm like, you guys are up 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, like just
Yeah.
end the game. The why you gotta like Tyreek Hill's run off the sideline trying to fight people, like you're not even you're on offense and it's the defensive team on the field. Like just go back and sit on the sideline, let your team win the game and you can go home. Like why you gotta start trouble?
Well,
Like
those probably have a little bit more composure, and also don't lose by 14 points, and you'll avoid this.
well, the one thing was when Allen when he that one drop back he had, the whistle blew and then he got sacked afterwards. So
Yeah.
obviously one of his linemen came up and shoved the guy who tackled him. He's like defended your quarterback. I don't blame him, but then to like the Chiefs all get in their face. That's when like Tyreek Hill's running off the field. It's like just calm down. I mean, Mahomes realized that he was trying to calm everyone down, but it's not. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. But I just would have liked to see something a little better from them, especially an Andy Reid coach team. You don't see that very often.
Yeah, it's the emotions again too. I think it was both sides, but yeah, that game was like I felt the first game was so good and locked in. Like I just never really could get in on the second one. Like they didn't have nearly the same energy or excitement as the first one, and it's just I think we're just watching it was like there was a clear difference between which team is better and which isn't.
Yeah, and it was funny when after they won, after the Chiefs won, I was thinking about. Well, I saw people on like on the internet. They were like, "Oh well, Andy Reid's legacy is going to be so nice because he was handed Patrick Mahomes." I was like, "Hold on, slow down, all right? He was not handed Patrick Mahomes. He drafted Patrick Mahomes and then groomed him into like what Patrick. There's no guarantee Mahomes would have been an amazing quarterback on other teams. Like, there's no way you would know that. So
Yeah,
I feel like people should. Some people were taking credit away from Andy, which is absurd. But to that point, I think in like 30 years from now, when like you look back and you're like, all the coaches from this decade, I feel like Reed's going to be remembered as the Kansas City coach, not the Eagles coach, because
oh,
he
of
could
course.
end up of at least 2 Super Bowl wins.
Well, yeah.
So and when he was with the Eagles, he only got to one and they lost. But
I mean, this is Mahomes' third season as a starter, and they're in their second Super Bowl. At this point,
yeah,
they might not remember the Eagles thing because he's going to have what 4 or 5 Super Bowls with Mahomes. Like, who knows how good they'll be?
maybe.
Yeah, it'll be a good game. I mean, I'm just to see that the Chiefs just look great, and that Bills game, I thought it might be able to the Bills would be able to hold in, hang with them, but they just did. It
Yeah.
was clearly that they were so much better than them.
Well, like you said, Mahomes is now going to his second Super Bowl, but his opponent, Mr. Brady, will be going to his 10th, which is you can't even put into words how like ridiculous that is. Like
I listen.
like LeBron's been to 10 NBA championships, but we're talking about like a football team. Like there's not repeating like there is in the NBA and in the NFL.
So I feel like every year, like obviously when Tom Brady makes his deep run in the playoffs, like he's done every year for the last 20 years. You always hear right around this time, right before the Super Bowl, is you always get the crazy, ridiculous Super Bowl or playoff stats that Tom Brady has that will never be sniffed or touched by anyone. And they're always incredible. Don't get me wrong. Like when they bring down the fact that he has more playoff wins than like majority of the franchises in the NFL. But this year, I feel like the Super Bowl facts and playoff facts are just insane because you're factoring the NFC numbers.
Yeah.
My favorite one I've heard, well, the two favorites that I've heard so far from him, the fact that he's now leading the Buccaneers in playoff touchdowns, career playoff touchdowns in 1 year is just amazing. That is just baffling. And then the fact that he now has the same amount of NFC titles as Aaron Rodgers does, who has played his entire, well, he's 37, so I forget how many years he's been in the league, but he is a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback. Tom Brady was able to match that in 1 year. It's just outstanding. His numbers are, his playoff and Super Bowl numbers will never be touched. They're just ridiculous.
Another crazy stat for you that I saw was, so I think he's been in the league, 20, 21 years. And he's been to the Super Bowl, what was it, like 47% of his career.
Mm-hmm.
So they took that and they looked at Steph Curry, and he's 43% free throw or 3-point shooter. So Brady has a higher chance of making the Super Bowl every year than Steph Curry does of making a three. Like that's insane.
Listen, it's every year right around this time after he makes whatever deep run he's going to do, and everyone comes out with all the Super Bowl stats and the playoff stats. And granted, obviously we both picked the Packers. I was surprised that the Packers lost that game, but Brady's just incredible. There's no one really else to say. He's amazing.
Well, it was funny watching because what I was saying to you the last episode, I was like, I think they're both going to play close game, and towards the end of the game, we're going to see someone's defense step up and make a play. And you got Jari Alexander making 2 interceptions, and I'm like, okay, here we go, Aaron Rodgers, now your time to shine. And they did nothing with like most of I think it was 3 picks. I don't think they got any points off them.
So I'm actually glad you brought that up because that was the other thing I wanted to get to. So they did have the 3 turnovers, 3 in a row. They got the picks off Brady. So the first one they did score a touchdown off.
Okay, yeah, I knew the last one they didn't get any points off.
So the other 2, they were both 3 and outs.
Yep.
Here's the kicker: the combined yards they had in those 2 drives off of turnovers was -5 yards.
Wow.
And that's just, man, that is bad.
You know what's funny is I remember Rodgers, after they scored that touchdown, that he went over to his defense as they were going onto the field. He's like, get a stop. And then they got him a turnover. And what did Rodgers do? Nothing.
Yeah, he did nothing with it.
Well, not all Rodgers, obviously, but yeah, the Packers offense didn't do anything.
I really thought that I thought the Packers had that game. I thought they were going to be able to, when they got when they kept getting the interceptions, I thought the Buccaneers were just going to falter. And they jumped out to that early lead, and then the Packers just kind of kept on coming back. And I thought they were eventually going to catch up to them, but they just faltered completely. Obviously, we have to mention the idiotic. I still don't understand. Even now we are a day removed. I still don't actually understand how Matt LaFleur is an NFL head coach and decided to kick a field goal in that moment. Like, I just want to break this down so you're down by 8 points.
The opposite of what Doug Peterson would have done.
Yeah. So you're down by 8 points with 2.5 minutes left, and I believe they had all 3 of their timeouts. So, first off, Rodgers should have ran that touchdown in.
100%.
Both dudes that were in the end zone were double covered. I don't know what you were thinking there, but you kick a field goal, and your reasoning is, in that moment, I thought it was right, or he thought the defense was going to get a stop. Okay, if you think the defense is going to stop the greatest quarterback to ever play on a 2-minute drive to end the NFC Championship game, first off, I don't think that's going to happen. But sure, you can lie to us and tell us that you think your defense is going to stop Tom Brady. So why don't you just go for the touchdown, go for the 2-point conversion then? Because if you think the defense is going to stop you, then Tampa's going to get the ball on the 6-yard line, and you'll get another crack at it if you don't get it. Like, it just literally makes 0 sense.
Yeah.
Make them drive the entire field. You're going to give them 2.5 and 3 timeouts. Make them drive the entire field. If anything, just you give yourself a second chance. You're still down a touchdown, even if you kick the field goal. Like, it baffles me. Like, you needed a touchdown there, and then when you kick the field goal, you still needed a touchdown.
Yeah, and then and I'm thinking about it like, okay, wait, so you're comfortable, with what was it, 2.5 left, and technically they had 4 timeouts, counting the 2-minute warning. You're going to give
Exactly.
the ball back to Tom Brady when he's got the Super Bowl on the line? Are you out of
Yeah.
your like? Are you crazy?
That's the first stupid part of that is just you're not giving this ball. If you give this ball back to Tom Brady, you're not getting it back. I don't care if you
Exactly.
have 8 timeouts and 6 2-minute warnings, and there's a whole quarter left. You're getting Tom Brady the ball with 2 minutes
Yeah.
left in the fourth quarter of the NFC Championship game. Where have you been the last 20 years? Do you not know how this story plays out?
Yeah. Apparently, Rodgers had no say over that. That was the floor's call. But I,
I
I still don't know how you
that
don't fight that and say no. We need these points. Like, why not go for it?
it's inexcusable. But
Yeah.
even though that was so dumb, I still like Aaron Rodgers being a little baby and saying, I don't know what my future is going to be. Dude, you're under contract for 2 years. You're playing with the Packers. What do you
Yeah.
mean you don't know what your future is? If you want to be a diva or cry and get all the trade rumors going crazy, then sure, mention you don't know what your future is and act pity and poutful on your post-game interview.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a dynamic between a head coach and quarterback where at this point, I just have to assume that they both hate each other. Like you can't, I don't know how else to explain it
I
besides
think it's
Matt Ford.
Rodgers. I don't think he's
Well,
ever gotten along with any of his coaches.
but I mean, I really don't think LaFleur likes him either. Like, I feel like LaFleur drafted Love after the first season with Rodgers because he must have been like, this might not work out. If you move on, I'm probably okay with it. And then this year, now it's like Rodgers saying, I don't like you. Like, I don't get it. This team went to 2 NFC championships. You went 13-3 both seasons. You were there
Yeah.
together, and they can't stand each other.
Yeah, I don't get that dynamic at all. But I also thought it was funny how a lot of Packers fans were like, "Oh, the game was rigged," and the refs were on Tom Brady's side. I'm like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
some of the calls were a little iffy, but you had Kevin King literally doing his best impersonation of burnt toast. Gave up 2 horrible I first of all the first touchdown he just mistimed like he's a fucking middle school football player. And
Yeah.
then the second one, terrible coverage. Couldn't anticipate it fast enough. And then
Well, I
he
mean,
had a full grasp of the guy's undershirt. Like you could
oh
see on the
yeah.
replay, he literally had he stretched his shirt out. You're gonna tell me that wasn't a penalty? Like, come on.
There was like 6 seconds. You're like, he was too late to understand, on the Scotty Miller touchdown. Dude, you should have realized that they were going to go take a deep shot regardless. There's
I
6 seconds
instantly
left.
thought of the was it Jets Raiders game where they
Yep.
let I
Yep.
was like, that's the first time I was like, they have no time for another play, and you can't allow anything deep. You have to get back. And he's just like, oh, all right, I'm just gonna take my time. Like
He's like playing the under. Like there's some, like he's playing the flat or underneath. Like there's a safety behind him. Like, dude, as soon as he runs past you, you need to start hauling ass and go get him.
it hurt. It hurt watching that as someone who likes watching elite corners and safeties. And it's like I always thought Kevin King was decent, but like, wow, he was.
That was horrific.
Not good. I mean, Jari Alexander played phenomenal, but his buddy on the other side was not good.
Yeah, no, that was pretty. Listen, and it's Brady. He's so smart that you're gonna make that the first mistake. I'm gonna get you a couple more times. Once he finds who he's gonna pick on, I also the big matchup that I thought going into the game, and I was obviously foolishly wrong about it, but because I thought that the Packers looked so good running the ball against the Rams, and that offensive line just dominated. I thought they would just keep doing it, and they combined for 67 yards on the ground on 16 carries. That number one run defense by the Bucks is no joke. There was no room to run the ball anywhere, and this team it just ran it all over the Rams. And man, Vita Vea, his first game back, that was huge. And then also that defense, man. What I am nervous about with the Chiefs, I'll say I take the Chiefs next week, but now that Fisher towards Achilles and Mitch Schwartz is already out, you're missing both tackles. They sacked Aaron Rodgers 5 times. JPP and Shaq Barrett looked legit. And if you can't run the ball on them, they're going to pin their ears out and come and get you. So, Mahomes is amazing and they got a bunch of weapons, but Rodgers is no slouch, and they got after him and they took advantage of that.
Yeah, it's gonna be an I think this matchup is. If I was the Chiefs, I probably would have wanted the Packers. Because I think the Bucks clearly have the better defense and they match up much better. I'm not saying I don't think anyone's going to be able to keep up with Tyreek Hill, but I think Levante David and Devin White are much more suited to take out, Travis Kelce than so far any other team has been. But we'll see. We'll see what they do. I mean, I know they are missing. I don't know if both their safeties are going to be out again. They had Winfield Jr. and the other safety.
I
left
would
the
think.
game.
Well,
So,
yeah, Winfield was like a
well,
last
Winfield didn't
minute
play, but the
game.
other,
Yeah, he was a game time decision. I would be stunned if he didn't play with 2 weeks off. But yeah, I mean, the Chiefs obviously are just lethal for the pass game, but I think they're going to struggle to run the ball, and we'll see if Mahomes can adjust to that. I mean, it'll be interesting. And that the Buccaneers secondary is weird. Like I felt like they were getting torched by Rodgers, or they were
yeah.
making big plays. Like they had some very good plays that they made, but they also got burnt a couple times on some bad stuff. So
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, if you can just put a whole bunch of guys back there and stop the run, maybe you can slow down Mahomes and them a little bit. But the defense looked good, and if I'm Tampa, I look forward to carrying that defense in there and Brady just keep rolling like he is.
Someone pointed out a funny thing that we got Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown both in the Super Bowl and Big Ben's at home. So that was, I mean, for as much as, I mean, they're not even really focal points of their teams, which is also pretty crazy because they were both, arguably two of the best of their positions when they were with the Steelers.
Well, they're both ring chasing. That's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, and hey, LaShawn McCoy, I'm glad to see he's got an opportunity at another ring too, even though he's also not really a factor on his team.
I was gonna say that's kind of sad though. He's gonna go to back-to-back Super Bowls, and he's probably gonna be inactive in both of them.
Well, I think he's been active all playoffs for the Bucks. I'm pretty sure because I've seen him suited up, but I haven't really seen him on the field. But I've seen him wearing pads. Yeah, that's I mean, I get it. Andy was trying to win the game, but I was surprised that he didn't let McCoy suit up last year. But
we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens. I don't know if he's going to get the call again. They might want to carry another wide receiver because Antonio Brown's going to be back next week for the Super Bowl.
That's true. Yeah, I think that wraps up our conference championship. So, like we said, Chiefs versus Bucks, Tom Brady versus Patty Mahomes.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it'll be a good game. I don't know if it's going to be like when the last time Tom was in, or remember how the Eagles, Tom Brady Super Bowl, he lit up the Eagles, but then the Eagles also lit up the Patriots defense, and even though Tom Brady had a crazy stat line, they still lost. I feel like it could be similar to that. I don't think it's going to be as high scoring. I think both defenses are strong enough to keep it within the late, 28, 30s. But
we'll see. I mean, the big things that I look at for next week, and we get to that later, but obviously I mentioned already the Bucks defense, and especially with the offensive line issues that the Chiefs are having, not good timing to you lose your left tackle for the rest of the season. Sure. But so that defense versus Mahomes is going to have to slow him down. But then for the Bucks, I think it's going to come down to Brady a lot. Like Brady did not look great in that entire game against the Packers. He did throw three interceptions.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some plays that he made, like pass to Scotty Miller was on the money. He made a couple of them really nice throws, and obviously he's just so smart and doesn't make mistakes besides the interceptions. But if Brady's going to have to score and he's going to have to move that offense, if he can score, if he can put up some big numbers and put up 30 points, I think the defense can give them a shot. They're obviously going to have to score because they're playing Mahomes, so I think the defense can at least slow them down with the injuries and who they have. That if Brady can ball out, I think they have a good chance. It's gonna be good. I mean, I look at it as it's the hottest team versus the best team in the NFL. I think that's what you want to look for in the Super Bowl every year. You want the team that's been the best all year to be in there. They usually deserve it. And then the hottest team always makes it fun because they're the ones that's dangerous. And there is no team hotter than Bucks right now. And you factor in the Brady experience in the Super Bowl, it's gonna be a good one. I think we're gonna be have a very entertaining Super Bowl. I'm excited for it.
I agree. So I would say moving on, obviously the big news, Philadelphia Eagles have their man, Mr. Nick Sirianni, as the new head coach. He was formerly the Colts offensive coordinator, and then he spent time in, not San Diego, but with the Chargers and the Chiefs. Like you said, it was very out of the blue signing. He was pretty quiet name. But my initial reaction was it was okay. I wasn't upset, but I wasn't thrilled, so to speak.
Okay. Yeah.
Because like you said, it's we didn't know much about him. But now that it's been a couple days, I like it. I like what I'm hearing about him, about how the players really respect him and they think They bond really well, and I like the staff he's put together so far. It was either last night or today. We officially have our offensive coordinator, which is I don't know how to pronounce his name, but Shane Steichen. He was from the Chargers. He was, I mean, look what he did to Justin Herbert. That's got to be kind of exciting.
True. Yeah,
Jeff Stoutland will be staying on as offensive line coach. I think that's huge.
I agree.
Um, and then they have Jonathan Gannon will be the defensive coordinator, which also was pretty happy about that. I heard a lot of secondary, like obviously the Colts had a really good secondary this year.
Yeah.
And who do they have? Like Xavier Rhodes or whoever? He helped kind of resurrect his career.
So, I mean, he turned around. Julian Blackman, the rookie we talked about many times this year, has played really well. And the resurrection he did to Xavier Rhodes is very impressive.
Yeah, and I was hearing he was going to be in line. So we got him a little early, so to speak, because he was going to apparently be in line next year for like a big-time defensive coordinator, possibly head coach role. So that's cool. And then obviously they got the last coaching hire that I know of, Tracy Rocker, the defensive line coach from Auburn, who apparently a lot of people are really high on. So,
hey, I mean, look at the last couple of years. Javon Kinlaw and Derek Brown were, I believe, they're both Auburn defensive linemen that went top 10. You know, you like to see college coaches that can develop NFL players like that.
Yeah, that's the staff so far, and obviously Deuce has signed with the Lions. Essentially the same role, but to me, like that was. Like if Deuce ended up staying on this staff, to me that's him saying he's content with his role. He's not really super eager to move up in the NFL coaching ranks. But I felt if I was him, I would have wanted to change the scenery.
Of course. As
much as that you've done for the team and vice versa, you know, it is a little bit disrespectful that in 3 head coaching, hiring phases that you were basically passed over all 3 times. So
yeah,
not even to get promoted offensive coordinator officially, like it's.
I mean, for him, I mean, listen, if he stayed with the Eagles, there would be no head coaching jobs that he would interview besides the Eagles, and they already passed him over a couple times, so it just made sense for him. Going to the Lions, I don't know how much that's going to help your career. The Lions are like just a black hole.
Their new coach
crappiness
seems like a riot.
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll see. Listen, the motivational pep talks are all nice. Let's see if you can actually coach and develop talent. So the Lions are not known for that. So we'll see what happens. But
Stafford might be on his way out too. So
yeah. Thought on the coach. Obviously, we talked about this. I think the last episode we did. When we talked about the names they were thinking about hiring, and I wasn't really thrilled about any of them.
Yeah.
So this guy came out of left field. I didn't even know they were interviewing him. I don't know a ton about him, to be fair, but. The hire does kind of remind me of when we hired Doug, coordinators that came from, guys that coached with the Eagles before, guys that Laurie and Howie know that they probably ask about and get their opinion on. And Reich obviously talked him up and said he's a genius and all this. So I think that carried some weight, just like Andy did with Doug. The other thing is, different situations, but when they've hired Doug, they had that high draft pick. They had Bradford, but then they traded him. They knew that year that they were going to draft a quarterback, so they wanted someone that was going to help develop that quarterback. And then eventually Wentz was drafted. Different situation, but kind of similar. You still need a quarterback guy because your quarterback's not a rookie, but he definitely needs to find how to play football again because this guy just lost it completely. So I think it's a good hire for Wentz. I think all the talk about Wentz getting traded can probably go out the window because I would be surprised if he's not looking forward to working with Wentz either. But I wasn't jumping around ecstatic when we hired Doug, and that obviously turned out well. I can't say that I'm going crazy loving this guy just because I don't really know a ton about him. I didn't watch a lot of Colts games. I didn't think the Colts had this offense that made me think that they were just, a juggernaut. But they had some good things going. They ran the ball really well all year. They got to the playoffs with Phillip Rivers, who he exceeded all my expectations this year.
Yeah.
So I can live with it. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how the moves are going. I do kind of like that it's a younger coach because I think this team needs to get younger. And I think that, I don't know if they're going to mention rebuild, but I think you really need to rip it all up and start over and bring some more talent in. As for the coordinator hirings, little disappointed he didn't bring in someone a little more experienced, a little more veteran guy like Doug did with Schwartz.
Yeah, I agree.
But the picks, I can understand it. You bring in a guy that that was on that you worked with the Colts, and a guy that I actually think played, had a good season considering how good the Colts did. And we
Yeah.
mentioned the turnaround roads and everything, so I can live with that. I do like the continuity of bringing in a guy you've worked with before, and then the offensive coordinator for listen. Next year is going to come down to saving Wentz or not. Whether because you're going to have too much money tied up to him for him to be a failure again. And I think with these moves and you firing Doug, that basically said you were going to bring him back, and Carson was going to be the future. So why not bring in a guy that just proves that he can, win with a quarterback? Like Justin Herbert had a hell of a year, and rookie quarterbacks, it's usually those quarterback coaches, offense coordinators that do it for them instead of the head coach. I think we kind of all learned that DiFilippo and Reich were more responsible for Wentz, early success than Doug was, because ever since they left, Doug has not been able to get the same Carson Wentz out there. And I think it really comes down to the guy that is sitting in the room, talking to him every practice, focusing on him each week, and coming to game plan. And to that credit, I'll give this guy a lot of credit. Herbert looked amazing, and he was probably the one who was his right-hand man through it all. I obviously have ripped Anthony Lynn multiple times, so I don't think his offensive input was helping that much. So I'd like a little more experience, but it's a young crew. If you're about to rebuild and get this roster young, which I think you have to, I like that you have a young coaching crew that hopefully can grow with the team.
Yeah, they're all under 40. I think Sirianni's 39, and then
they're all young guys.
I think the offensive coordinator is 37, and the defensive coordinator is 36.
It'll be big in this situation. I think it works because you are young. You're going to have to be a young team, and you're probably going to rebuild this. When we were hiring Doug,
say more retool than rebuild. I feel like they're going to gut a lot of older players and then bring in a youth movement. So I mean, I could see like a 7-9, 6-10, 8-8 season, like within that range for next year, and then the year after that, hopefully back to playoff aspirations. But
the off-season moves are going to dictate that because obviously you're going to have to get a young. But I mean, holding on to some veterans like Cox and Graham and Kelsey, I think would be ideal considering you have such a young staff. You really don't have a lot of experience on your coaching staff at all. So maybe having some veteran guys that can hold the respect in the locker room, maybe why these, Sirianni and the coordinators are kind of figuring out themselves, and that's why I kind of like the Jim Schwartz thing. And I think it worked out so well. Is Jim Schwartz was just the defense. He took care of it. There was no worries. No one tried to get out of line because you had a head coach running the defense, which in that Jim Schwartz was a head coach, and he ran the defense and had the respect for the defense, and it worked out really well. I think that made it easier for Doug. So Sirianni actually didn't go that route, so we'll see how it works out. But
yeah,
whoever they hired, I would have, this is the problem with being an Eagles fan, is whoever they're going to hire, I was going to lie to myself and get myself believing that it was a good hire regardless or not. So we won't know until the season goes. It's going to come down to Wentz. Wentz, I think, is going to be the guy going forward, and he's going to they're going to be tied to the hip almost.
It'll be huge. How quickly do they develop a relationship? How quickly is Sirianni able to identify what's wrong with Wentz? I mean, there's been news that he's got plan and set already to try and get him back on track. So, I mean, we'll see. I agree. I was really hoping for like a Jim Caldwell to be our offensive coordinator, like you said, a veteran coach. But I also think it's good that Sirianni is bringing in the people he wants and he's familiar with.
Yeah,
I think
that I do like.
That automatically builds like rapport within your coaching staff, and as opposed to bringing in people who you've never met before. I think I like it on paper. It looks good. I'm hearing a lot of good things about these coaches, even though they're not as established as anybody else. But on the same hand, like Doug he only interviewed with the Eagles when they hired him, and everyone was saying it was a risky hire because Andrew Reid called the plays, even though Doug was the offensive coordinator. Same with Sirianni was offensive coordinator, but Frank Reich obviously called the plays. But what I've heard is Sirianni was as important in the game plan as Frank Reich was leading up to the games, and obviously worked with some really good I mean, what he did in Indianapolis with he had Andrew Luck before he retired. Obviously, Andrew Luck was really good. Then he made Jacoby Brissett look legit for a little bit. And then obviously had, granted, you don't like Philip Rivers, but, he helped Philip Rivers kind of have a nice finish on his career. He had a solid
Hey,
season.
listen, yeah, Phil Rivers exceeded all my expectations. I won't say anything bad. He got to the playoffs. I didn't see that happening. So
Yeah,
you know,
I like the potential. I'll go that far. I'm not going to try and get too hyped, but I do like so far what I'm seeing. Obviously, free agency, trades, re-signing, cutting players, drafting. That's also going to be huge. How involved is Howie with the coaching?
well, yeah,
You know,
that's the other side of hiring this unknown guy is it pretty much guarantees that we're getting more Howie Roseman
well, it
drafts.
looked like the first person he greeted off the plane was Howie Roseman. I was like, oh.
Yeah, well, you know what? They didn't and I said this with McDaniels. This was a job that didn't make sense for McDaniels.
That's the other thing. I'm just glad it's not McDaniels.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the case of any of these coaches is, some of the ones that didn't even want to speak to him, like the Lincoln Rise and Brian Daboll's, because they probably knew that Howie was going to be very involved and going forward, and that wasn't going to change. And that's still the issue. This has got to be a year how he has to prove it. His rookie class has got to hit this year because you're going to be drafting very high every round. I know you said retool, but I'm looking almost at more of a rebuild because I there is no young talent on this team. There's none. Like, I mean, we have players that we think can be pretty decent, but really, do you like the Derek Barnetts, the Jalen Mills, well, neither of them are really young anymore because they're both a couple of years in the league, but at the same time, they never really, they were the young guys and they really haven't developed the next step. Like these are guys that I'm ready to replace. These aren't guys I'm ready to build around.
I like Barnett. Honestly, I think Barnett's a top 15 D end. I think when he's fully,
I don't know about that.
No,
really? I don't know about that.
I think so. I wouldn't. I'm not. That's why I didn't say top 10, but I think he can start for a lot of teams for sure. I think he's better than people give him credit for. He's a little inconsistent, but the talent is definitely there. Jalen Mills, on the other hand, he's a plug and play guy. I mean, he'll do some great things, he'll do some bad things. I mean, if if they bring him back, I'm not opposed, but if they let him walk, I'm also not super upset.
Well, I mean, the real problem with that is you're keeping these guys even if they can't make the next step and develop because you can't replace them because you can't draft them correctly or get free agents. That's the problem with this team is the guys that we wanted gone. Like, I feel like every year I'm like surprised Jalen Mills is still on this team. Like, we just are incapable of replacing them with younger, better talent.
I mean, I would also say it's also a lack of that younger talent developing. Like, Kayvon Wallace really didn't develop at all this year. We had corner issues. We had help. That's another thing. Jalen Mills' main reason I think they brought him back is depth. Like, they wanted a guy who could play safety and corner, pending any injuries. And obviously Avonte Maddox was in and out of the lineup and also wasn't particularly good at cornerback this year. But
yeah, I just think like this team has a bunch of players on it that I've been ready to move on with from like 2 years or like 3 years ago. Like they're just bringing.
I mean,
back
hey, maybe
guys.
this coordinator, maybe this D coordinator will come in and make Jalen Mills into a Pro Bowl safety and Avonte Maddox into a solid starting corner. You never know.
Listen, we'll see. Like a good analogy was like Greg Ward, very solid player. Mm-hmm. Like he's good in his role. He's fine. He played well on when he got his chance. But you know what? If you hit on Whiteside and Rager and they became actual like starting players, like players that you expect them to be as a first and a second round pick, and your veteran players that you re-signed like Alshon and Deshaun played and were healthy and weren't complete disasters for you, like Greg Ward's probably not on this team. But they're just incapable of finding young talent and developing it or making correct roster moves that these guys that got their chance because of all these injuries and stuff and have been okay. Like okay players are on this roster every single year because we can't replace them. You can't bring in good to great players. So we keep bringing back okay players. And that's their issue. And this year is different because I know, I see it as a rebuild. When you're drafting this high, it's usually you have a lot of issues. They're going to have a lot of high draft picks and a lot of valuable draft picks. They can't miss on them this year. If they miss on them this year, and you know what? I know rookies are tough to give up on 1 year. If I don't see immediate success or promise from this rookie class, then Howie is really going to have to answer for it. You can't mess this one up. And this was my issue with keeping Howie, is you're in a position where you cannot afford to mess up these draft picks.
I mean, if you, the way I look at it, obviously we'll get to further episodes where we'll go really in depth with the draft, but I just look at it as like, you got what? I mean, Micah Parsons and then like Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase, and maybe Patrick Surtain of Alabama. Like any of those players would be phenomenal at 6. Like if you go outside that range, like who the hell are you taking? It's going to be some random guy that we've never heard of who's supposed to go in the 3rd round. Like, don't do that. Be smart.
Yeah.
Take the obvious pick, unlike you did last year, and then not getting Justin Jefferson. But I will say, besides Wentz, I think what I'm hearing about the new coach Sirianni is, he was a former quarterback and receivers coach. And a lot of receivers under him played really well. I mean, even the offensive coordinator, he had a lot. I mean, you look at Mike Williams and Keenan Allen had a lot of good success under him too. So I'm really hopeful for Rager to have a bounce back season. Obviously, I think him being hurt kind of stunted his season development.
Yeah.
Because I think he came on a little bit the last few games, not as much as you'd like, but a little bit. So I'm hopeful that they're going to use him properly. Like, have him do like what, Mecole Hardman and Tyreek Hill were doing to the Bills, like all around the field, doing reverses, have him in the backfield, take a fucking snap as a running back, like use his speed,
I mean, that's the reason they drafted him over Justin Jefferson, is because they said Rager is more versatile and can do more like in the punt return
and they
game.
didn't use him.
Yeah, but they don't.
They said line up at X and then run a fade. Like,
exactly.
What is that?
Like, they don't have creative play calling, and they also didn't use him as a return man. But these are the reasons that you drafted him over Justin Jefferson. And this is why these things don't make sense. But to your point, I know, he was the wide receivers coach with the Chargers, and he was pretty good there. And he was also the wide receivers coach in 2012 with the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So I think the wide receiver coach is actually what he's been mostly. I know he's been a little bit of everything with the quarterback coach a couple times, but listen, you can't develop wide receivers worse than the clowns we had beforehand.
That's one thing. Like, as much as I really did enjoy Doug's time here. I always have respect for Doug, but some of the people he's surrounded, like some of his coaching staff, were just not very good.
Oh, the undoing of Doug was the fact that his assistants and coaches around him stink. Like, that was the undoing of Doug. I'm
almost more glad that some of those coaches.
Yeah. I mean, I necessarily never really wanted to get rid of. I know he had a bad year, I can't kill. I mentioned with this quarterback coach as our OC now. Like, I give him a lot of credit on Justin Herbert, and I almost give him more credit than I do Anthony Lynn, even though Anthony Lynn was head coach, because he's the guy in the office every day coming up with weekly game plans for Justin Herbert. And the problem with Doug is that the guys below him were just incapable and were terrible. And this goes back to where they haven't developed anyone in a while. And he was so loyal to them, and that's what cost them. Is like, you know what, Doug, I'll get rid of you just to get rid of all the other assistants that you have underneath you. Yeah. So whatever.
We'll see. It's it's exciting. I mean, I wish it was more well timed. I was literally half a mile into a run when I got the breaking news that they had a new coach, so I had to stop and create a graphic on my phone real quick to make sure we were up to date and try and find radio stations to hear, because it's exciting, whether we agree with decisions like this or not. It's entertainment is exciting. I'll agree with you
on the timing decision, but I think I have you beat.
Wait, you know what, I apologize. I forgot that last week we had obviously a huge signing with the Eagles, but we had an even bigger signing. Mr. Tim Mullen is now engaged. So congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Yeah,
I'll let the episode off with that. My apologies.
That's okay, but I'm not gonna lie. Obviously, I was a little nervous because I was like cooking dinner and like she was in the other room. I was just about to do it. Like, I mean, I think I did it like 5 or 10 minutes after. And then I took my phone and the Eagles side coach. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I'm already nervous, and you're trying to get me off my A game by having the Eagles hire a coach. I was like almost tempted to like call you and do an episode with you right then, but I figured she might have got mad at me if I chose the Eagles head coach over the engagement. But
that's true.
I was like, I can't believe this is all happening all at once. It's like, one way or another, I'm going to remember this day forever.
Yeah. So hopefully he turns out to be a good coach, or it'll be
Or
in infamy.
I think my marriage will be cursed if he's not.
Nah, but yeah, congrats. That's awesome. Definitely the biggest sign of the week. I'll give you that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's hilarious that those two things collided at the same time. I was like,
Yeah,
Sharp always like
that was Thursday, right?
yeah, I
That
shit
was
you
a
not.
busy day.
It was 5 minutes before it's post. The Eagles trying to keep me off my toes.
But it's Howie. He's got the insight. He's like, how can I throw these guys off?
Yeah,
He's listening to the pod.
Yeah, put my two loves conflicting against each other in a big moment.
What can you do?
But all right, I think that's all I had. Unless there's anything you got that we missed.
No, I think that wraps up the conference games pretty much, and then like I said, next week we'll go into the obviously Super Bowl matchup of the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is also crazy because Tampa Bay's technically playing a home Super Bowl.
I know,
which is the first awesome. Ever, and it's Tom Brady's first season with the it's just everything is.
Tom Brady has done everything you possibly dream of in the Super Bowl, has every playoff record, and somehow he found a way to do something that not even he has ever done in the Super Bowl.
I guarantee you there is at least one player on either the Chiefs or the Bills who saw that the Buccaneers won. He's like, are you fucking kidding? Like Brady finally leaves the AFC and we have a chance at the Super Bowl, and now he's on the other side in the Super Bowl. Like,
listen, I'm not gonna. If you told me that Tom Brady was thinking about that before the season started, I wouldn't be surprised. Like you said, he goes to the Super Bowl more than Steph Curry hits threes, so he's probably like, you know what? I've never hosted the Super Bowl. That would be fun to do. I'll just do that. Yeah, why not? Oh, Tampa, sure, they're okay.
They almost played the season exactly as I thought they were going to, because in the beginning of the year, I was like, it's going to take Brady some time to get acquainted with the new offense, the new team. Yep. They're going to win games against easy opponents. They'll be, I don't know, around 9, 10, 11 wins, make the playoffs. And I thought they were going to lose in first or second round. And then here they are, the fucking Super Bowl. So,
well, you knew that once he got in the playoffs, he was going to be dangerous. And plus something about the fact that they were in Lambeau and it was cold weather made me actually think that Brady might actually have a better chance of winning than the Packers do, even though they're home.
I think, like I said earlier, I think there's a higher chance that the Bucs could beat the Chiefs than I think the Packers would have beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we'll see. It'll be good, but.
Will.
Till next time.
All right. Well, we'll end it there. And look forward to next week. And Tim will be now 2 weeks into his fiance role. So.
That's true.
A lot of promotions going on.
We'll see. I'll have it synced up with Nick Sirianni's head coaching career forever.
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right. I'll talk to you.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Peace.
Peace out.